As the months keep going by, divisions keep getting released, and Guangguang's hair keeps getting sent to the ether. However, in this long string of events, hero releases, balance changes.
Hello everyone, Guang Guang here.
We have decided to give Black Cat a legendary skin that buffs her ass by approximately 42%. It's getting increasingly apparent that NetEase has really got to slow down their content pipeline. Not that players are disliking the content itself, but there's a lot of flaws with the way that they make content, and it's beginning to show more and more, mostly with the quality. Now, when I say content quality, I'm referring to mostly everything that you could consider content, from heroes to maps, team-ups, and modes. But starting with the heroes keep getting released in extremely broken states, and this has been a bit of a trend for at least one hero per season since Season 5 and 5.5. First, it was Daredevil, because on release he was genuinely a terrorist, getting extreme amounts of temp health for nearly all of his attacks, and the rate at which he got his Fury, the resource that allowed him to do most of the attacks, was such an insanely fast rate that he was basically like Bucky in getting an extreme amount of temp health and just never dying, but with the mobility of a dive and a block that could reflect projectiles back at an enemy. In theory, you could make it so that if an Iron Man tries to solo ult you out of spite, you can just block it and then send it right back at him, and boom, he's done, he's gone. Daredevil was literally scarier than Prime Iron Fist, and that dude can fly. Daredevil can't fly, and I think that he was scarier than Prime Iron Fist. Hell, Iron Fist can still really fly, but that's besides the point. After Daredevil, we have Gambit, and Gambit, who has 2 dashes that can go relatively far if you combo it with the big spin, a cleanse, a insane amount of healing output, and an ult that cleanses and makes everybody a bee-hopping demon, alongside giving them 20% faster ult charge acquisition. Gambit was literally one of the only heroes that has ever been released that if you did not play him, whether it was in quick play or competitive, you automatically lost, and there was no question about it. There has been no hero that has been that decisively broken. Sure, you could ban him in competitive, but again, if he was in play in any way, shape, or form across quick play or competitive, you automatically lost unless you matched it.
Gambit never falls!
Nope, I'm jumping off, fuck this. There has been no other hero like that. After Gambit, we ended up having Elsa Bloodstone. That was absolute hell, even though it was a lot shorter of a time compared to Gambit and Daredevil on release. Her Galatrox hitbox was extremely wide and had extremely weird behavior on some areas of the map, making it so that 3 to 4 people could get caught in her ult despite being nowhere near the Galatrox to begin with. The fact that Elsa Bloodstone has extreme mobility made it so that she was able to recall Galatrox and then go 50 yards deep into her own backline to make it so that anybody she caught in the ult was just unable to leave. No matter how much mobility you had, you were likely not getting out of the situation. And since her elephant gun, the attack that she gets to be able to chain a lot of combos, actually has percentage damage, it made her sort of a tank buster-ish poke hybrid, and with all of this together, it made it feel like that on release she was more built to be a brawl than a poke character. Yes, did she have some pretty decent long range? Cool. She had really bad damage fall off when it came to her primary fire, but again, her elephant gun did percentage damage and had no damage fall off, so what does it matter? I shouldn't have to bust my neck trying to see where the Elsa Bloodstone is because she is moving like a crackhead. Wait, did you guys just see that? And then kills me in 2 seconds because, again, percentage damage. Just not fun. Moving on from heroes though, maps. If we look at the map releases from Season 2 to 2.5 all the way to now, back then, before Marvel Rivals had switched to a 1 hero a month cycle, usually we got 2 maps per season. And even then, past Season 2 and 2.5, we did actually get 2 maps, technically, in a given season, but that second map was usually reserved for a new mode, or a mode that wasn't the core game mode. In Season 8, the Alchemax map is actually a Doom Match map, and realistically, who plays Doom Match enough to care? All the maps that have been released since then are just extremely weird maps in my opinion. Things like Lower Manhattan, I have been a hater of Lower Manhattan, especially the first point. The second and third point I'm okay with, but the first point is just really weirdly designed. It doesn't really give a lot of ways to have team fights on the point effectively. And I would say from Season 2.5 to now, the only really good map that is released since then might have to be the Deadpool Convoy map, or yeah, no, that's it. There's not that many good maps, to be honest. Team-ups is another thing that has been decreasing in general quality. Team-ups in the earlier seasons of Marvel Rivals were usually things that made it so that the two heroes that were in play usually were in synergy with each other, or gave a genuine reason for the hero to be played. Things like Wanda and Magneto, as an example. Magneto was able to play at extreme range in the same way that Thor is able to in his awakened form, which is something that's absolutely huge for a tank that doesn't actually have that much range at all. Nowadays, we end up having really funky crutch team-ups like Rocket and Mr. Fantastic, or Luna and Iron Fist. Like, realistically, what does Luna and Iron Fist do? This doesn't do too much and gives no real reason for these two to be played. They'll end up getting played off of coincidence, not because of the team-up. There have been some team-ups in recent seasons that actually do give a reason for play between these two heroes, but a lot of the team-ups where that is actually a thing, the heroes in question were already being played a lot anyway. Things like the Strange and Invis team-up. Those two heroes were gonna get played regardless if they had a team-up or not, because those two on their own can just stand super well on their own. People like Namor and Hela were just going to get played on their own because they are very typical poke characters to play against Dive. Them getting a team-up just makes them even more annoying and gives Namor an even worse rap than he already did, since Namor is already a generally annoying hero anyway. Gamma Squid was arguably one of the worst eras of Marvel Rivals. I do not miss that era at all. And finally, the new modes of Marvel Rivals, mostly talking about the Blood Hunt and Marvel Zombies modes. While they are really cool, a lot of these new modes are very lacking in terms of long-term replayability. And I know that Marvel Rivals wants to have a content experience that makes them more than just a PvP game. A while ago, they said that they wanted to add a lot more PvE modes, a lot more story content, a lot more lore stuff, and make Marvel Rivals its own universe. And while modes like Blood Hunt, Resource Rumble, even though that mode sucks, and other modes are a step in the right direction, a lot of them are things you play for about a couple days to 2 weeks, and then you just don't touch it again. Other games that do what these modes are typically just do it a lot better because that's what that game is made to do. Marvel Rivals, being a PvP-centered hero shooter, doesn't really give the PvE modes a chance to truly be fleshed out in the way that I think NetEase wants to really take it. And again, do not get me wrong, Blood Hunt is an amazing game mode. PvE modes are still really nice and I love them, but they're just fads. They're not sticking with the player base. They stick in such a way that you can remember fondly about, oh, I really liked it when I played that. But aside from that, you touch it once and never again. There's just no reason to play any parts of these new modes again after winning a few times or making some sort of video on it if you're a content creator. I haven't touched Blood Hunt ever since I maxed out one hero, and if I wanted to go max out the other heroes, it's not hard to just pick up one of my friends, tell them to go carry me while I just sit around, and then just max out the other 4 heroes. And even if I wanted to try to make it harder on myself by going all the way back to normal mode on a brand new hero and then grinding the nightmare modes again, that's just not fun. There's no reason to do that. If Marvel Rivals would just give their developers a little bit more time to flesh out these game modes a little bit more, these problems could be alleviated, but as of right now, not looking too great in all these different fronts. Another sign that Marvel Rivals content quality is declining is balance, and the way that they've balanced their heroes ever since the beginning is beginning to show its cracks in a lot of different ways. Namely, on release, a lot of heroes are released in a super over or super under powered state. Infamous examples include on release Daredevil, Gambit, and Elsa Bloodstone, where it feels like that a lot of them were kind of just overlooked in how oppressive they actually are, and then Marvel Rivals will end up just letting them reign their terror for multiple seasons on end and just not touch them, despite player complaints. Other heroes that ended up getting this form of similar treatment were people like Hela, who was able to 2-tap squishies for the longest time at any range. That's crazy. No poke hero should have an infinite fall off kind of a balance philosophy. Hawkeye is another example who, while he's kind of useless otherwise, it's still not a fun gimmick to be completely one-shot with no way to react if Hawkeye lands a fully charged arrow headshot on you. If I'm completely unable to react to a player action on the enemy team, and I am completely at the mercy of the player behind the character, that isn't good balance at all. It's not. And again, I'm aware that Hawkeye's completely useless without a one-tap kind of a gimmick, but again, unreactable still isn't fun. Nerfs coming super late or heroes getting gutted super early is something that NetEase has been doing for a pretty long time now, and it still doesn't really make that much sense to me as to what they're thinking when they're deciding to balance characters. Letting some characters just reign supreme for seasons on end just because, despite player complaints, and then nerfing characters that players weren't even concerned about is just a really odd way of thinking. All the while, tank mains are still just getting the short end of the stick when it comes to balancing, because tanks just aren't allowed to be strong. They're able to be decent picks, and there's always a best tank, relatively speaking, but they don't get to have that sort of oppressive nature in the same way that a duelist does, in the same way that a support does. Usually it always dumbs down to the big three, but that's just because tanks don't really get to be strong. The big three are the big three because tanks don't really get to be tuned in the same way that supports and duelists do. Speaking of supports, Luna Snow in particular really has been NetEase's cradle child since day one. Tell me why Luna Snow is able to be a DPS in the right hands. Why is Luna Snow able to do that much damage? Is it because she's a hit scan character? Is it because it requires aim to do? There should be no reason why you're able to play a strategist as a duelist for any reason. It doesn't matter. There should be no reason why content creators and certain players are able to make a name for themselves simply by playing a strategist as a role that they are not. And that's just only their primary fire and their freeze. Her ult having a crazy damage boost can make other DPS ults extremely oppressive, and her healing output is pretty insane, and while it's pretty counterable in high level play, Luna is just a top support for no reason, while off supports such as Adam Warlock have been neglected for many seasons and only is decent because he was recently able to fly. Before Adam Warlock was able to fly and float with Soul Bond, he was genuinely the blade of strategists, and still kind of is, because a lot of the ways that duelists and the rest of the cast is balanced, make it so that off supports really aren't able to have a place in the meta. Like, NetEase seems to be really scared to have the scale be tipped in one specific way, that the way that they balance things now, it kind of makes a good chunk of the roster just completely unavailable to play for one reason or another, typically because so-and-so hero is way too broken, therefore a lot of the other heroes can't compete. For example, when Poke was at its extreme upswing, when Hela was still able to 2-tap, when Hawkeye was being extremely annoying, most tanks just couldn't be played because a good chunk of tanks are brawl or dive tanks. Why would I try to play the Thing into Hela and Phoenix? Why would I try to play Rogue into Hela and Phoenix? I'm going to flop over and die. And now with brawl and dive DPSs being a little bit more meta, that problem isn't nearly as great, but it still proves that the way that Marvel Rivals is doing their balance philosophy, it's just putting more and more strain on everybody else who kind of has to go with what NetEase says, since they're not balancing their heroes directly, and those who do get buffed directly just get to have fun, and everybody else has to just adjust to them. It's not fun when I have to adjust to duelists and duelists don't have to adjust to me, when I have to play tank or some other role like that. This has only been a problem since roughly Season 6 and 6.5, but the topic of power creep is beginning to show more and more as more heroes seem to kind of overlap in their niche. Healers and DPS especially have been seeing a much steeper power creep with every new release, because the new hero is usually overtly complex and seems to fill a much more broader range of niches compared to earlier heroes, which were usually designed with one specific niche in mind. If we go back to the launch roster, where we have people like Storm, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Magic, etc., they were made to do one thing and one thing only. Iron Man and Storm were usually able to just do lots of single target damage and just stay up in the air, with some crowd damage opportunities. Iron Man with his splash damage on his repulsors, Storm with her lightning state and charged lightning state, being able to hit multiple targets at once, and then their ultimates were usually big, single, like, big moment, get a few kills and then get out. Nothing too crazy. Magic only has 3 abilities, and her ultimate is just a powered up version of the same 3 abilities. Nothing crazy. Compare this to people like Daredevil, who has significantly more abilities, a resource instead of regular traditional cooldowns that make him a lot more oppressive compared to launch heroes, an ultimate that blinds, that does consistent tick damage alongside the damage that he's already doing when focusing on a target. Compare launch heroes to Invisible Woman, who's able to protect her team, who's able to heal at an insane rate, who's able to push and pull and manipulate heroes' movement, to Luna Snow, who can only really do that once every blue moon and only heal a single target at a time, and then heal multiple targets once every 12 seconds, and that's if you're using her claps the moment her cooldown comes up. Rocket was only able to just do group healing, and that was his niche. People like Gambit, who released after Rocket, are able to do group healing and good single target damage at the same time. Newer heroes are just able to do more because they're given a lot more to stand out. Although, this just created an effect to where old heroes are just lagging behind more and more, and NetEase doesn't really do too much to give them a new niche in the changing landscape that they're making. They only really come when absolutely necessary and players complain enough to make it happen. Otherwise, if players don't complain, then usually NetEase will just leave it on the back burner for however long they please, and with this many heroes, sure, some might just get left in the dust for a little bit, but they don't get left in the dust for a little bit. They're usually left in the dust for months on end, which can create a form of resentment for many players within the community. A way that I've come to look at it is, why try hard with old heroes when newer heroes are easier and can get the same amount of value? Why would I play Magic, who requires to do all these extra combos with timing and positioning and learning how to weave in and out of the backline, when I can play Daredevil, who gets rewarded with a lot more temp health a lot faster, which means I get punished less for bad dives, and I can just button mash a lot more often in the same way that Magic cannot. Magic can't do that kind of BS button mashing thing, so why would I try hard with an old launch hero when the newer hero is just easier? There's no incentive, and that is something that NetEase really has to just slow down and really fine-tune a lot of these heroes, and they just need more time to do that. Right now, they can't, because they just need to slow down. Because I don't want my entire video to be me complaining the whole time, I'm going to present at least some solutions that I think could help curb NetEase's content problem that I've been talking about for the last 10 or so minutes. The biggest solution would be to extend seasons to 90 days total instead of 60 days total, which would give each half season an extra 15 days each, turning a 30-day season into a 45-day season. Those extra 2 weeks can be used to push the new hero to creators privately before trying to do a public spectacle the week before, and it'll give the developers generally much more time to fine-tune characters and give them a lot less pressure when trying to decide balance and trying to decide what exactly they're going to put out when it comes to more content in the future. Another thing would be to have no double releases ever again. I know they only really did that during Season 3 and 3.5 with 2 duelists, but this applies for double strategist and double vanguard seasons. There should not ever be 2 of the same role being released in the game for a given season. Even if some roles do need it, and I as a tank main would love to have a double vanguard season, I don't really think that neglecting the other 2 roles is beneficial to any capacity, even if I'm the one who would be the beneficiary of it. Beneficiary? Who the fuck uses the word beneficiary? What am I, a professor, bro? Oh my god. Another big solution, especially for those who really care about balance like I do, is taking the extra time to do 1 extra balance patch per season if necessary. So as of right now, where we have a balance patch that comes in during the beginning of every season, during the 0.0 and 0.5 is, midway through the 0.0 and 0.5 halves of a given season, just do 1 extra little hotfix to do really tiny adjustments if necessary. This results in roughly 4 to 5 adjustments per season total, and it'll allow player complaints to feel a lot more heard, even if those tinier hotfixes aren't anything monumental. They don't have to be anything monumental, but it's a lot better than some heroes just getting no changes for multiple seasons on end. And while I am not a worker at NetEase, I'm not exactly sure how many employees at NetEase work on Marvel Rivals. I do think that having more people in the office, if they're running low on manpower, would be a really beneficial thing for the team. Particularly people in the balancing sector, not necessarily having Zhuyong be the only one, because it really does feel like that Zhuyong is the only mind that's going toward balance in Marvel Rivals, as far as we can see. If there could be some sort of like council of people to help with balance, that could likely help out with how balance goes in the game, or just more people all around so that Zhuyong can have more balance go to more heroes at a time, and then the content can be added at the same rate if they don't want to add more time to a given season. So, you know, instead of having, let's say, 50 programmers trying to program all of Zhuyong's changes, bumping it up to maybe 75 would make it so that Zhiyong could ask for more and it would still get done in the same amount of time that they're doing it as of right now. Finally, this is a completely optional thing, and I'm aware that a lot of the Marvel Rivals player base is not really fit to think about balance in this kind of a way. I've heard some pretty dumb takes, including myself. I do have some pretty dumb takes on this channel, but letting players vote on more things that happen in the game officially and not just screaming into the void on a Reddit forum or in the Marvel Rivals Discord would be, I think, relatively beneficial in a perfect world. Things like hero votes, voting on certain features that they have in a list, and a feature priority list in the same way that Minecraft used to do their mob votes back in the day. Although this only really works in a perfect world, and many players are inclined to have shitty takes, or content creators may be inclined to just rally their player base to get what they think is best for the game. So realistically, this feature shouldn't really be a thing, but it's still an optional thing that I feel like could benefit in at least some way. Do you think I'm wrong in any way, shape, or form in this video? Do you think I forgot something in one of these sections in this video? Please drop a comment telling me about it. I would love to hear it. With that, thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Please like, sub, and share this video as it supports me a lot more than you think it does. I would like to be able to hit 1K subs at the end of the year, although that is a pretty big ask. I'm still working endlessly to make sure that that happens, and with your help, it can. With that, I love you all so much, and with that, I'm out.